Hey.
Hello, everyone. Professor Engelstein here with part two of the Sabrina Wallace riveting interview regarding your body area network and mesh networks in general, and what's it like to be a node on the network. And before I pass the baton over to the star, I wanted to remind everyone that American history is the history of warfare, okay? From so-called American Revolution, which was sort of a marriage reconciliation with Switzerland via the Bank of London or the Bank of England. Then we had the American Civil War. And if you ever thought that there was such a thing as a democratic republic and you didn't wake up in 1861, then I don't know what to say. But clearly, if it's a republic, that means you volunteered to be part of a greater union. But instead, they fought a 4-year war and killed almost 600,000 English speaking Americans because apparently you don't have the right to leave the Union. You cannot secede from the Union. That's the lesson from the Civil War. Then we had World War I. Well, we had the Spanish American War, we had the Mexican American War, we had World War I, World War II, we had Korea, we had Vietnam, which was twice as long as you think it was because we had the unofficial participation from 1955 to 1964. Then we had the fake Bay of Tonkin. Then we had another 10 years of killing 50,000 Americans and 1.5 million Vietnamese. And we had the Iraq conflict one. Then we had the Afghanistan based on knocking down 3 empty buildings in New York City at the port facility, which is totally impossible without permission. Then we had Iraq #2. And during that 100-year period, we created the EKG, the EEG, the electroencephalogram brainwaves. EKG is your heart, magnetic resonance imaging of your electronic magnetic frequency, the electrical body area network of your heart. That was really created in 1887 to 1895, then made ubiquitous in hospitals after 1909. They stumbled across the X-ray machine around that same time. So then we had X-rays, we had the heart rate monitoring. Then we pivoted to the brain wave monitoring in 1924. Then we institutionalized it by calling the American EEG Society was founded in 1947. Then we, at that time, created nuclear medicine, which is radio frequency in people, radioactivity in humans. That would be your body area network. Then in 1971, we came up with the computerized tomography, CT scan. 10 years later, in 1981, we introduced magnetic resonance imaging, aka the MRI. And if you layer the list of medical technological breakthroughs to help people stay healthy with all the wars designed to kill people, this is kill, and this is supposed to save. They dovetail perfectly like a template. So my supposition as a professor of antidote, I consider myself an antidote, poppycock, balderdash, mendacity, poison. So I'm calling the medical technology of heart rate monitoring and brain wave functions and computerized tomography and MRI, I'm calling those military weapons. They can be used for good and they can be used for evil, but they were developed with a military budget. Nobody raised any money to save anybody's life. That is very naive. So with that intro to part two, Sabrina, take it away. You have the baton.
Well, my grandfather worked for the Boeing company inside of their Vertol project in the 70s, in the late 60s, which is your vertical lift and takeoff with drones. Inside my first interview, I show a picture of an MQ-9 Reaper drone that was over in the Korean War with my great uncle. And inside of the Gulf War, one of the phrases you will often hear is something called voice to skull technology. Now, in the
Can you
new
repeat that? Voice to skull?
voice to skull technology,
I've never heard that.
of which in the 40s and the 50s, they were learning how to vibrate the brain, its fluids, and its tissue by magnetics as well as heat in order to engender the audio cortex or your frontal lobe to receive very specific electrical signals, which would then transduce in your tissues or in your audio cortex by your bone, and you would hear voices in your skull. And the skull,
Are you suggesting that an external apparatus can put thoughts into your brain?
absolutely. And in the 40s and the 60s, they called it voice to skull. Some people, even now, due to the lack of education about how these programs progressed, they're unaware of our newest brain computer interface. And that is something where you could be breathing in a set of smart dust. You could have drank something that has more nanomaterials in it, or they can simply target you with an electrical signal to have your body create the necessary electrical conductivity inside of you to hear or experience through your own bone and tissue whatever electrical signal they want to. This is the real key component with understanding our bodies are naturally electrical. These things happen to us naturally. And what they did was they figured out those frequencies from a distance. And by the time we rolled into the Gulf War, voice to skull had been expanded into what we have now, which is that mesh networking with these air particulate that create a little network that floats around you. See these little spots right here?
Yes.
These air particulate are heavy metal. They're different. They're made of different types of materials.
Yeah, I know they have different recipes because I've been observing this now for 16 consecutive months. And there's also cloaking involved too, where I hear the jet, but I can't see it. And then I don't see the chemtrail. I mean, I've seen tens of thousands of chemtrails, so I am an expert on that. But there are times when I don't see the chemtrail and I see the plane, but no chemtrail. But then my skies are all aluminum silver color over the next 20 minutes to an hour. So maybe it was a cloaked chemtrail, not obvious. I don't know why, because they've dumped tens of thousands of obvious ones that are 6 miles to 26 miles long. And my neighbors don't notice those, even though Stevie Wonder could see those. A blind man could see those, but my neighbors can't. They have eyes but can't see. They have ears. You can hear the jet. I can hear the jet, but they cannot. They have ears but cannot hear. But they'll make it invisible, maybe for my benefit, so that as long as I can hear the jet, I'm disturbed. There should be no jets over my town ever.
The radar that they use for cloaking with plasmonics and the cymatics and these different architectures, working with frequencies, working with the particulate, they have the ability not only to cloak things, which you would know, the SR-71, and the way they develop things is in an order. And that voice to skull phrase definitely needs to be updated to brain computer interface. This is really important because it's been commercially available, meaning that anybody can go out and buy one and you can send thoughts to your friend and they can send them back for computer gaming, starting your coffee pot with your mind 3-4 years ago. This stuff is commercial now. And we still have a lot of people that don't even know. Georgetown University with Professor Giordano, they will show you how that connectivity works brain to brain and neuron to neuron. And that is called cognitive warfare. A lot of people know the term PSY-op, as in psychological operation. But in our newest NATO documents, it is cognitive warfare due to companies like Synchron who have created synthetic telepathy with that same smart dust and particulate and all of these networks that we're walking around in all the time. Professor Giordano called it cognitive threat warfare technology. And that is your EEG. The same EEG you mentioned when they made it that
Right.
got turned into
1924 was when they rolled it out.
right. And so as it updates and upgrades and goes on, and then by the 80s with the CT, now you have these little devices with a little remote. They put on a headset and they don't have to even do that anymore. That was 2012.
Yeah.
Now it's literally a Reneas, RENEAS chipset with Microsoft OpenAI Azure in the left hemisphere. No chip, no knurling, no. It can be done with something called a stentrode, meaning you breathe in the nano. They can inject the nanobots and it creates it right inside of you in real time. The same way when you go get an endoscopy done with an electroceutical, meaning you take an electrical pill that opens up sensors inside of you so that it can report your endoscopy results more accurately to the machine. Just as you surmised, each of these medical upgrades came along with being tested with our military out in the field before it's deployed and handed to the commercial communities. But brain-computer interface is definitely out there commercially.
Yeah, that's how they get the profane, the sheep, the masses to volunteer for cancer, is what my uncle used to call it. He said there's no reason to volunteer for cancer, but spectroscopy was discussed in 1922, but had existed way back from when Sir Isaac Newton was fooling around with his optogenics, beam splitting, sunbeam splitting using the prism. But then they introduced it into our healthcare system in America in 1922, and it was called spectroscopy. But I think it's really a form of militarized optogenical systems to see through walls or see through people's body into their bone, into
Yes.
their heart. More like, Superman had X-ray vision. This is like more advanced than Superman, who was from the 1950s.
Full spectrum of the electromagnetic spectrum dominance, whereas our human eyeballs only
Yep.
see 0.0035%.
Yeah, it's like nothing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, okay, here's a technical question for you, Sabrina, because I'm as confused as some of the folks on the internet. There's all these videos about the vaccine, and I think that's old hat, because we've moved on to the next phase, and then we're going to move on to another phase soon that'll be different than the others, but they're all part of the same equation to a real ID, digital enslavement, techno enslavement, mark of the beast. And there are people who believe that, well, I didn't get vaccinated, so I'm safe. And I counter with, no, time out. You're not safe. That's not the only potato in the Lay's potato chip bag. They have many ways of getting sent biosensors into your body, not just one way. It's true that some people maybe are more radio frequency, have a stronger signal than other people. And not everyone gets augmented or damaged in the same way. And people don't necessarily respond exactly the same to the same method. But here's a question. So if people built an underground bunker that was lead walled and lead ceiling, and they went down there and they said, okay, phew, I'm safe here because the energy system in my neighborhood cannot find me because I'm wearing a hazardous mask or hazardous waste uniform, and I'm in a lead basement. But you're saying, but our bodies have a natural electrical aura. Our body area network functions as long as our heart is beating and we're living creatures. We give off a certain amount of energy, and that energy could be used to trigger the biosensors in our brain. So we're sort of like a standalone computer. Am I understanding this correctly?
Yes, they write algorithms specifically for the resonant frequency of your toroidal fields, plural, which is what the human biofield is comprised of.
Oh.
And then any frequency within you that goes to a specific organ or tissue. That's how precision AI medicine accesses, and they can do remote healthcare. However, if you're in a bunker and you're underground, we've had extremely low frequency and very low frequency with experiments such as Clam Lake in Wisconsin, long time ago with the Navy, and we can see underground no different just by running those big standing waves through the ground. And then there's your frequency along that wave pattern. And they've been
What if
doing.
is there copper or some lead or copper or something like you insulate in a radiology department, the hospital, to try to minimize the exposure to outside?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. Yeah. And there's different types, as you said, lead paint and a Faraday cage effect, mirrors that will actually block the signal or simply reflect it. But the trouble is that human bodies are natural human biofields. Right. We communicate with one another without all this extra technology going on, and they take advantage of that. That's more signature signal and resonance.
Yeah. So they weaponized the music, and they weaponized our religions, and they weaponized our neighborhood, our people in our neighborhoods. Some are more deadly than others, but everybody has been conscripted without their express written permission. No one has given their permission.
I would submit
ever a discussion.
Yes, that nobody gave permission for this. And if humans knew, it's your own body that where the signal is generating from. It's not generating from the 5G tower. And it doesn't have to be the vaccination that just went by. It could be a vaccination you had 5, 7, 20 years ago. But you get next to another human body.
Right.
That the connection of your bioelectricity to the other biofield. And that could be a way to set off what's called a nanolipid package inside of a different type of vaccination. And because we are unable to, thus far, generate authentic dialogue instead of spooky terms and phrases like MK Ultra, voice to skull, targeted individual, no. Hang on. This is about our health. This is the new precision AI healthcare. These are systems that are in use with your Fitbit. And for the people that are using terahertz wearables, they have no idea. They think these things are individual, that they can just go out, purchase them. And all of those items feed bioelectromagnetic algorithm databases for the digital twin. And then they also take care of surveillance and reconnaissance. So we have special networks that are built just for you and another body that handle mitigation and interference. And what I tell people is it is not a vaccine if it requires graphene. That's a different situation. And there are multiple metamaterials. It doesn't have to be graphene, but it's the body that generates the signal to set off a nanolipid payload, as well as wearables, towers, whatever.
I know those 5G towers that are on the perimeter of a town, and then they call them mini cells or micro cells that are closer in, that 5G waves don't travel very well. So they require a lot of different smaller to get in to hard to get areas that the big beam tower can't do. But that said, I do think the big towers that are very expensive and tremendous amount of electricity use,
and they
must be feeding energy into a grid, into the grid area.
Yes.
And then from that, that's got to spill over into all the people going shopping or picking up the kids at school, and they're getting bombarded with radiation continuously 24/7, in addition to whatever your own body produces. There's all this additional radiation. So I think the solution's got to be that we have to reduce the amount of radiation, period. However that can be done is the right step forward. We shouldn't be going to C40 smart cities. We should be going rural.
But as you've pointed out with the geoengineering, and thank you for doing so, because a lot of people get confused and they think, well, we'll just cut the towers down. And I've had
Well,
to,
no, that's not enough, but
we
it's a
can't,
good start.
it's a terraforming kind of situation. That's how they're
Yeah.
going to force everyone into those city architectures.
They have
And
many ways they can do that, though. They
yes,
can blow up the stock market, which they can do at any time. They could have done that when Ronald Reagan was president. They can
mhm.
do it anytime. And with the whole case, if you're listening, the stock market is fake. Okay. It's fake. The prices are fake. They're rigged. They're whatever the Swiss bank says they are. And if they say they're zero, then the price is zero. If Bitcoin is fake, it's a fake market. Everything's fake. And the bond market is the most fake of all because it's the biggest market of all. You take all the real estate market, there would be no real estate market without the credit market. In other words, the ability to borrow money, to do leverage buyouts, buy office buildings that are empty, buy big, ginormous mansions that are mostly empty because people don't really use their mansions very much. So everything's fake. So when the authorities decide that they want to move people into a smart grid and that it's already built up, they'll do it then, or they'll do it whenever they feel like, right? Because it's just a game to them once they're ready, and they're real close to being. I mean, they just bought 55,000 acres of land to go with the NATO air base near me, and that would make it a 63,500 acre farmland property with an 8,000 acre NATO base.
Well, I
And
think,
they haven't started working on it yet. It's in the permitting prop. They just bought it less than 12 months ago, and they're already in the blueprint stages, and they're looking for permits to begin putting in the sewer lines and stuff. So they're going to go real fast. I think within 5 years it'll be done, if not soon.
mhm,
I mean, they might be able
yeah,
to. I know my friend at the Department of Energy told me that FEMA camps can be put up in 90 minutes. And I said, how can that be? How can you build a city? He goes, every military base in the world is a FEMA camp. That's where do you think the prisoners during World War II were kept, right? They were kept by the Germans at the Air Force bases. They were kept near an Air Force base because they have transportation easy and railroad, rail and airport facilities.
mhm.
They put the tents up because they have all the equipment, the porta potties and the tents and the mess halls. MASH units are already at every military base for the last 50, 60 years. They've already had that. So that system's already good to go. But this concept of the C4 cities and 15-minute cities is in process while this is being taped.
And they call it the Urban Planning Smart City Initiative.
I see.
And Agenda 2030 is already done. But I wanted to speak to mitigation briefly because it's always
Yes.
the question people ask. Well, what do I do? What are the solutions?
Right.
Clean and structured water, meaning that your water is filtered in, the way that you works for your environment, because everybody's environment's different. There's haptic gear that you can get that blocks EMF and like the hoods and then clothing and other things of that nature, lead paint.
Where can you buy that?
We have a couple links on the channel
Oh,
that I
okay.
recommend to folks to just look for electromagnetic frequency blocking gear. But
Right.
you do have a few links on the channel, but there are other people that talk about it a lot more for both hunting and also previous or veterans that have speak about the different clothing. But there is
Okay.
also the EMF blockers, the orgonite, things like that. They do work. They harmonize or deconstruct wavelength that's close to the body, but they don't take care of absolutely everything all the time because you're in
Could you hold that up again, Sabrina? And what do you call this?
This is the Hope and Tivon's Fix the World Morocco project. This is called a sleep pod. And all you do is put it next to your head. Works phenomenal. I can know it.
Wow.
I
Well, that
know,
may be one of the big tips from today's video.
really, because
That's very helpful.
it's so important. Yes. And they mess with your sleep a lot because
Yeah.
the drones and the other surveillance hit the top of your head just by the nature of the how your body is structured. And
Yes.
then your sleep becomes damaged. And we all know if you can't get good sleep, you don't heal as well because you can't sleep as deeply. And then
Yes.
the other thing is heavy metals. Any way that you can keep heavy metals out of you. That includes cleaning up your diet, training like an Olympian. But
Well,
really,
no, that's not a good example. That's not, do
Not
not
train
tell me.
like
You're
an
going to end
Olympian.
up like Caitlin Jenner. So
But
that's hormones and pharmacology and perfluorocarbons, PFC, right?
apologies,
Which is
Professor Engelstein.
synthetic blood, right? So we don't want to train unless you want to
Not like an
take blood
Olympian.
into your body from MIT and BioPure, Polyheme. They have fake blood products. Some come from cow, Norwegian calves. Some come from big bovine cows, and others come from a mad scientist laboratory in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and it's called synthetic fake blood. Like the stock
Mhm.
market is fake, you can get fake blood, and then you can be a Navy SEAL and stay underwater without any oxygen tanks for 30 minutes. I know the last time you went to your bottom of your swimming pool for half an hour without drowning. But that's how you train like an Olympian, because you see like all those Olympic swimmers that are setting all these records, right? They never breathe. They're like porpoises. They take 2 breaths in a 4-minute race. Like, how
What
is
I,
that possible?
what I encourage our folks to do is whatever format of exercise is good for you, just stay in the best condition that you can
Yeah.
and mind your
Try not
situation.
to breathe in too much pollution,
Yes.
because you have to breathe when you exercise, cardiovascular or pulmonary. And
Mhm.
that's my dilemma, is that I don't want to train the way I used to, because I think I'd be hurting myself. And anyway, it is confusing because we know that not everybody is a zombie, but it would appear that the majority of people in our neighborhoods are zombies in
In our
some form or the other.
in our next discussion, Professor
Yeah.
Engelstein, if it's pleasing to you, I'd like to discuss further the Internet of Behaviors, which is the
Okay.
business side of the digital twin, because we spoke about the digital twin being in medical and surveillance, but there is also now business and education, and that's to control your behavior, the same way all those wearables have been doing commercially 5 to 7 years. Fill the database, now it's automatic.
We're going to have to spend time on the cognitive warfare concept too, because they'll probably, that's being rolled out on dating sites, right? Like people looking for romance, they're sheltering in place. They don't go out to meet people anymore. So they go on the internet to find a date. But what if some person is very augmented and another person is not so, and then they have sex? So then there's that. And then they're sending, so instead of text messaging, they could be like, they don't actually have to meet, right? They could, like, I'm in prison and you're my girlfriend, and visiting is very difficult, but we can still have dates even though I'm in a concrete prison cell with no window. It'll be romantic. I'll light a candle. So, except not in prison, because I'm not going to let you have a match, because you could be Jeffrey Epstein, right? People don't realize you can't commit suicide in the county jail, let alone in maximum security with 16 cameras. That's a murder or a kidnapping. It's a murder or a kidnapping, a disappearance, but it's most definitely not suicide.
Mhm.
But anyway, cognitive frightens me. The idea that machine to machine, zero trust, which we're going to have to talk about what that terminology means. Zero trust, because according to my brother at a database company, they are employing a zero trust, everyone. It's
That's
zero trust on humans,
zero trust. No
and
human
everything's
are
zero
to be
trust, which
Yep.
means you have to be real ID'd all the time to go to the bathroom, to use the toilet. People don't realize where this is going, how beyond dystopian it is. That if
Yes.
some authority is going to decide what kind of cat food you can buy for your kitty cat, we have gone too far. Or not allow you to eat ice cream, and your refrigerator won't open
Correct.
to
Yes.
get what you want to eat, because the owl knows you want ice cream, and like, no ice cream. So this is wackadoodle cuckoo for Cocoa Pops. This is science fiction from the 50s and the 60s in the 2020s and beyond.
Automated. Yes, sir.
Yeah. All right. Well, anyway, so let's wrap it up on part 2, and we'll reflect on this, and we'll have more videos so long as we get some positive feedback, folks. So hopefully tell a friend, tune in. This is information you're never going to hear this on mass media, mainstream media, and you're never going to hear this much on so-called social media, which, by the way, there's no such thing as social media. There's social surveillance. And most of the sites with the large subscribers and viewership, those are all military operatives, in case you didn't know. So if you want to tune into a military operative, stay off our channel. Just stay the hell off our channel. Not suitable for you. This will blow up your pea-sized brain. And we're not here for people that are living in the matrix of mendacity, balderdash, and poppycock. We can't help them. They're gone. As my mother used to say, we wish them tough love, but it's the only kind of love, because they're trying to climb on your lifeboat when you've told them for years, you need to learn to swim. You need to learn to swim. And now you're in icy cold water and you want me to rescue you. And I'm already my lifeboat is full with all the children. If I let you on, then someone else is going to die. And it's not my fault that you didn't learn to swim. I mean, I feel bad, but I feel bad that someone should have to pay for your mistake. So that's tough.
That's hard. Yes.
Hard, but we're at war. And guess what? People get killed all of the time. They get killed and wounded. There's casualties of war, the dogs of war, and it's dogs get put down left and right. That's why it's so terrible. But we didn't pick this war. We didn't pick this fight. It just came upon us, and we intend to survive. This is a channel for survival skills. But first, you have to understand the depth of the problem. That's where Sabrina is. Her channel is called the Synergy Channel. We will provide the links below. Strongly recommend you go back into her catalog. She has over 2 years of content. Pick and choose. There's thousands of hours of information there.
Important note on the content, my archived content is on non-vaxxer 420 on the Rumble, which we'll add to the links below. He helps me out because I keep the most recent content and live streams on Synergy at the Odyssey, which is the only place you can find me. And just remember, have faith in yourself. You're not stupid, whoever you are. You've been lied to. And you can choose to read. You can choose to look things up and ask questions. The synergists on the channel have their own Telegram. They're very helpful and they enjoy helping other people rediscover. It's just anatomy.
Well, thank you, Sabrina Wallace, for taking the time. Your dedication is very much appreciated. I'm so glad that we were able to collaborate, and I look forward to more education, more edumacation, and we'll try to add some humor and some music along the way, folks. This was just our first kind of trial balloon. Hopefully you appreciate it, and we'll be back with more soon. Thank you, Sabrina, and I look forward to seeing you on the other side of this video. Okay?
Thank you, Professor Engelstein.
Thank you. Right now.